Hello, my beautiful friend. I don't believe you found this message by accident. Because the energy surrounding today's reading feels different, stronger, more urgent. Almost as if something has been building behind the scenes for a very long time. And now it's reaching a turning point. Spirit keeps showing me someone standing in a place they never expected to be. A place between what was and what comes next. And what surprised me about this energy is that this person thought they had everything figured out. They thought they understood the connection. They thought they understood you. They thought they understood the outcome. But Spirit keeps showing me that life had other plans. Because something has shifted, something neither of you fully saw coming. And now the energy feels like it's moving fast. Now here's the interesting part. I don't feel like this movement started yesterday. I think it began much earlier. The difference is that nobody recognized it at the time. Because sometimes the biggest changes begin quietly. One decision. One conversation. One missed opportunity. One moment where someone chooses fear instead of honesty. And then life starts moving in a completely different direction. Spirit keeps showing me someone replaying the past, not because they want to. Because they're trying to understand where everything changed. They're looking back at moments that once seemed ordinary, a conversation, a goodbye, a text message, a choice. And they're realizing something now that they didn't realize then. The moment they thought was the ending was actually the beginning. And that's where things become very interesting. Because this person spent a long time believing they had more control than they actually did. They thought they could return whenever they wanted. They thought they could explain things later. They thought there would always be another opportunity, but Spirit keeps showing me that reality has started challenging those assumptions, because lately they've been seeing signs. Unexpected reminders. Dreams. Memories appearing out of nowhere. Moments that seem impossible to explain. And every reminder keeps leading them back to the same question: what if I was wrong? Now here's something fascinating. Spirit keeps showing me that this person recently learned something. Not necessarily a major secret, but something that completely changed their perspective. For some of you, they heard news about you. For others, they saw evidence that you're moving forward, a photograph, a social media post, a conversation, a mutual friend mentioning your name. Something small but powerful. Because whatever it was, it forced them to see you differently, not as the person they left behind, but as the person you've become. And that realization shook them. Because they expected time to keep everything exactly where it was. Instead, they discovered that life continued, and what Spirit keeps showing me isn't a list of changes. It's moments. A day when you stopped looking back. A day when you stopped wondering what they were thinking. A day when your own future became more important than their return. A day when you realized your happiness could not depend on another person's decision. And from that point forward, something shifted. Quietly. Gradually. But powerfully. Because while they were assuming there would always be another chance, you were building a life beyond the waiting. And for the first time, they're beginning to understand that they may no longer have the same place in your world. Now here's where Spirit showed me something I wasn't expecting. There's a memory they keep returning to, and it isn't the memory you would assume. It's not the breakup. It's not the conflict. It's not the dramatic moment. It's something quiet, a simple conversation, a look between the two of you, a moment when your guard was down. A moment when theirs was too. And every time they revisit that memory, they notice something new. Something they completely missed before. The night you stayed when most people would have left. The conversation where you understood what they couldn't explain. The moment you chose them when they weren't even choosing themselves. And suddenly that memory feels heavier than it used to. Because now they understand what it meant. But Spirit is also showing me something they've never admitted. Not to you, not even to themselves. There was a moment when they almost reached out. A moment when they almost said what they truly felt. A moment when they almost changed everything. But they stopped. Fear got in the way. Pride got in the way. Uncertainty got in the way. And that unfinished moment still follows them. Almost like a ghost. Almost like a conversation that never really ended. But that's not the only thing Spirit is revealing. Because there's something they've only recently discovered about themselves. A truth they've spent a long time avoiding. For years, they convinced themselves they were protecting their peace, protecting their independence, protecting their freedom. But lately they've started questioning whether they were actually protecting themselves or simply protecting their fear, and that realization has been uncomfortable. Because once a person sees the truth, it's very difficult to unsee it. Now here's where the energy takes another turn. Because I keep feeling that someone around them already knows, maybe not the whole story, but enough to notice the change. Enough to notice your name keeps coming up. Enough to notice that something unresolved still exists, because recently, I feel they've spoken about you. Maybe indirectly. Maybe casually, but they spoke about you, and once they did, something shifted. Because speaking something out loud makes it real. And now the silence they've been hiding behind doesn't feel as comfortable anymore. In fact, Spirit keeps showing me late nights, a screen lighting up, a message being started. Stop. Deleted. Started again. And every time they try to move on from the thought. It returns, stronger than before. Because this isn't just about the past anymore, this is about the future, specifically. A future where you may no longer be available to them. And for the first time, that possibility feels real. Now Spirit keeps showing me one final image. And an open message, a name typed into a phone, words waiting to be spoken. A conversation waiting to happen, a decision that can no longer be postponed. Because this person is approaching a moment they can no longer avoid, and what happens next. Is something they never expected. And my beautiful friend, that's exactly why you needed to hear this message today. Because what happens next may shock everyone involved. And this is where things become impossible to ignore. Because up until now, this person has been living between hope and hesitation. Part of them wanted to believe there would always be more time. Part of them wanted to believe they could wait until the perfect moment, until they had the perfect words, the perfect explanation, the perfect opportunity. But Spirit keeps showing me that something inside of them has changed, and once that shift happened, there was no going back, because they are beginning to understand something that makes them deeply uncomfortable. The future they imagined is no longer guaranteed. For a long time, they believed this connection would somehow remain untouched, almost frozen in time, waiting for them whenever they were ready. But life doesn't work that way. People don't stay the same. And neither do you. Now here's something Spirit keeps showing me, a realization that arrived unexpectedly. For some of you, it happened when they saw evidence that you're happy. For others, it happened when they realized how long it's actually been. And for some, it happened during one of those quiet moments when there was nowhere left to run from their own thoughts. Whatever triggered it. It led to the same conclusion. You are no longer waiting where they left you, and that's the truth they can no longer avoid. Now here's the hidden layer of this reading. Because Spirit keeps showing me that this person has been carrying around a version of you that no longer exists. A memory. An old photograph. An old chapter. But lately that image has started falling apart. Because every sign they receive points to the same thing. You've changed, not in a negative way. In a powerful way. And that's what they're struggling to process. Because the version of you they remember was still hoping. Still questioning. Still holding space for possibilities. But Spirit keeps showing me that something happened, a moment, a quiet turning point. The moment you stopped waiting, the moment you stopped checking, the moment you stopped looking for answers outside yourself, the moment you realized your peace mattered too. And from that point forward, everything began shifting, not all at once, but little by little. Choice by choice. Day by day. And what surprises me is that they can feel this change. Even if they can't explain it, they can feel the distance. Not physical distance, energetic distance, the kind that appears when someone finally starts choosing themselves. Now here's where the story takes a turn. Because Spirit keeps showing me that this person recently admitted something. Maybe to a trusted friend. Maybe to a family member. Maybe during a conversation they never intended to have. But your name came up, and once it did, the truth followed. And then they said something they didn't plan to say. Something that made the room go quiet. Something that revealed far more than they intended. I don't know the exact words, but I know the energy. The kind of statement that slips out before a person has time to stop it, the kind of truth that surprises even the person speaking it. And once those words were spoken, they couldn't take them back. But that's not where the story ends, because Spirit keeps showing me another moment, a question they weren't prepared to answer, a question someone asked casually. Yet it hit them harder than they expected, and what surprised me is that the answer surprised even them. Because in that moment, they realized something. They weren't as over this connection as they had convinced themselves they were. They weren't as detached as they pretended to be. And that realization followed them home. Now here's where the energy becomes intense. Because Spirit keeps showing me late nights, a phone screen glowing in the dark, a message being started. Deleted. Started again. Deleted again. Words rehearsed, conversations imagined. Questions they don't know how to ask. And every time they tell themselves they'll let it go, something pulls them back, not because they're trapped in the past, because they're being forced to face it, because deep down, they know something. The longer they wait, the greater the risk. The risk that you'll move so far into your future that there will be no space left for the past. And that possibility has become very real to them. Now I know some of you are wondering, what happens next? And Spirit keeps smiling when I ask that question. Because what happens next isn't only about them. It's about you. While they were trying to figure out what they lost, you were discovering what you deserved, and that's the part nobody expected. Not them. Maybe not even you. Because Spirit keeps showing me a version of you that sleeps peacefully now. A version of you that doesn't wake up wondering what someone else is thinking. A version of you that no longer checks for signs every day. A version of you that finally trusts themselves. A version of you that understands their value without needing someone else to confirm it. And that energy is powerful, because it changes the entire dynamic. But Spirit keeps showing me one thing they haven't admitted yet, one final truth. They no longer fear rejection. They fear regret. They fear looking back one day and realizing they allowed fear to make a decision that should have been made with courage. They fear discovering that the opportunity they kept postponing has finally disappeared, and that fear is becoming impossible to ignore. Now here's the final image Spirit keeps showing me. An unopened message, not necessarily a literal one, although for some of you, it could be. But symbolically, it's much bigger than that. It's everything left unsaid, everything postponed. Everything delayed, everything someone hoped they could deal with later. And Spirit keeps showing me that later is running out, because the person who once thought they had unlimited time is beginning to realize they don't. They thought they understood how this story would end. They thought they knew what the future would look like. They thought they had more time. What they never expected. Was that the biggest surprise wouldn't be losing you. The biggest surprise would be realizing who you became after they did, because the person they expected to find no longer exists, and what stands before them now is someone they never saw coming. Someone who found their own peace, someone who found their own strength, someone who found their own path. And my beautiful friend, that realization may be the very thing that changes everything.